Thank you, Rob, for agreeing to let us record a few minutes of your experience working with Synerzip team. So let's start out by having you tell us a little bit about the company and your role for our audience.
Yeah, so Digital Pharmacist, we are a company built on providing solutions for smaller independent pharmacies, and we're moving into providing solutions for larger pharmacies as well. So our primary product is engagement with their patients in real-time, HIPAA secure messaging and providing better workflows and process for pharmacies so they can go about their day with less interruptions and it can be more efficient. My role here at Digital Pharmacist is a director of engineering, running a couple of our teams, and primarily was interacting with Synerzip and their remote development team as well.
Excellent, excellent. Now, we've been working with Digital Pharmacist as a company, I think, for a few years, three-ish. I lose track of time. So, and you joined what, just about a year ago or so, and
Yep.
inherited this relationship, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
joined just under a year ago.
Under a year. Okay, good. So before we go into discussing your experience, tell us a little bit more about your other experiences working with remote development teams. What regions, what time zones, what issues have you had to deal with?
Yeah, so past development teams or contractors in remote areas we've had to work with were in South America. So we had Argentina and Brazil primarily that I've worked with in the past. Some of the pain points that we had was self-direction. You had to define exactly everything that you needed implemented. Essentially, you were programming through requirements entirely. And if you missed something, questions weren't asked, and you would have to have a bunch of iterations. So while the development team may have been in our time zone, there was more back and forth than we would necessarily want to get to our solution.
So that's a good segue to contrast now for a few minutes, now that you've been working for about a year with Synerzip. So how would you, for people who have not worked with Synerzip, who have some level of reservation because of time zone issues, because of the need to micromanage perhaps a remote team that they've heard before, especially with India, this comes up. How has your experience been for a year or so that you've been working with Synerzip team? Can you amplify?
Yeah, I'll speak to the development team first, and then I'll speak to QA after that. For the development team, we worked with a few engineers, and they displayed more ownership than many of our onshore employees. You were able to give requirements. They would ask questions if they didn't think something made sense on a product level, and they would oftentimes, if it happened to be overnight, they would consult amongst themselves and come up with a solution. So in the morning, it wasn't here's the problem, what do you want us to do? It was, here's a problem we think exists. Here is one or two solutions. Are these what you want to go with? That always is a better spot to start a conversation from versus here's problems, can you fix them? And one of the developers was pivotal in a lot of our automation for mobile applications, and he's been great. Would not hesitate to have him on the team onshore if he was here.
Wonderful. Great to hear this feedback. And then you were going to say something about QA. How did that work?
Yeah. So the QA process that has been established was fully self-driven by the Synerzip team. And they've set up automated testing, crowdsourced testing. They do manual regression testing, and all the issues that are found during our QA process are very thoroughly documented. So developers don't spend a lot of time validating if it is an issue or what are the reproduce steps. An engineer can just get started, immediately reproduce the issue, and can get working. One of the hugest benefits of that is you don't have the doubt. So our engineers wouldn't doubt any issues coming from QA, from the Synerzip team, because they consistently were on point with what issues were valid and should be addressed.
Excellent. How did you said your prior experience, Rob, was in the same time zone with Brazil and Argentina, which I'm sure are wonderful talent pool in any of these regions, no question. How did the time zone challenge with India How did you deal with that, given that India is about 10 and a half, 11 and a half hours away?
Yeah. So for the QA side of things, it actually worked out perfectly because a lot of times, especially with mobile testing, we would have builds done by the end of the day. And in the morning, our developers could come in, see any issues before we were going to do a release and address them throughout the day. So for QA, it was ideal. On the development side, usually I would think it is a concern, but the fact that the team was so self-driven, if they were to get blocked, they would have at least options that they worked on to be unblocked. And a lot of time, almost always, one of those options was valid and the path that we went down. So my primary concern would be if developers get blocked, there's no one there to unblock them, but they were extremely self-driven and able to unblock themselves, or at least take an educated guess on where they should head.
Very, very helpful to note that feedback. One thing that our clients sometimes wonder, to achieve this level of effectiveness where the team is self-driven, takes ownership, and the QA, you are using the time zone difference as an advantage in your case, to have the full cycle of testing done while the developers are finish their day. Did you have to travel to India to make that team effective? Did anybody have to travel from our India Development Center here?
Nope. No, the developers would join our stand-ups early in the morning. We're here in Austin, Texas. So we would usually hop on around 8 Central, and they were more than willing to hop on stand-ups. So we would have that contact point every morning with them.
Wonderful. So without any need for travel either direction, you are
Yep.
able to get this team to be high performance team as an extension of an in-house Austin engineering team.
Yep.
That's so wonderful to hear. Any other parting thoughts for people, other directors of engineering, VPs of engineering who are considering to sign up for this challenge to have it part of their team in India with Synerzip?
I would say if you sign them up, then you should treat them as engineers onshore. And as long as you're providing the requirements that onshore folks would need, you're going to get the output that you would expect.
What a wonderful advice. I mean, that's if you just treat them as your team and
Exactly.
give them the same level of direction that you give a local team restful. Excellent. But thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'm sure other people who are considering this will find this very valuable, Rob. So I appreciate you taking a few minutes with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks.